to recuse myself of this vapor that's in my lungs here from the. Well, I can't talk about where it came from because that would be, controversial, and it might get my channel demonetized. Oh shit! What would I ever do if I got my channel demonetized? I wouldn't be able to put all those amazing commercials on there. All my ad sponsorships, all the people that I have who want to associate with my brand. Look, this is a spontaneous live cast. I don't even know how long I'll even make it, but I've got 0 viewers right now, so it's beautiful. Um, if if I were to schedule a live stream and I were to say, you know, plan it a few days ahead of time, and maybe I had 1 million subscribers and I had all these people constantly waiting and commenting, it would be a different story. I might feel a little more obligated to perform. And so there seems to be this kind of desire for performance in the community of YouTubers, if you will. And I say YouTubers, but what I really mean is people who make video content to share with the world. And that tends to be YouTube today. So we have a lot of different people with a lot of different ideas and interests sharing their opinions online. And at first, it can be, I mean, pretty awesome to be able to share your views with other people and have, bounce your ideas off folks. Even if you don't agree, you might have a completely different view on what life's all about. But just to be able to bounce your ideas off of an invisible crowd, and if people like it, they like it, and if they don't, they don't. And this can work, many different ways. You can have a person who makes videos and instantly people love it and they find something that they relate to, and they get a huge crowd really quick. We've all seen YouTube channels that grow, huge, like thousands of subscribers a day. And you find that their content at first is really, let's just say, really balanced and well thought out, which is what attracts the people in the first place to watch it. And then all of a sudden, they get to a certain point of fame or viewership and they fall into a rabbit hole. And I see this over and over, and it just this just came to mind. It wasn't part of the video, but I was thinking Jordan Peterson is a perfect example. Um, I was listening to a podcast earlier. I can't remember which one. It's like the Conscious Something podcast. I listened to a lot of very kind of, spiritual, floaty type podcasts, things, but some of them just rub me the wrong way, and they're just too, either they cater too much to specific, I guess, kind of, celebrity worship of some of these guys with these ideas like, oh, have you heard of Wim Hof method? And what about this guy, this, Zizek, or, all these guys that are talking all this sense. Have you heard this guy? Have you heard this guy? Have you seen this guy on the podcast? And it's like, these are all just dudes that are repeating the same shit that all of us repeat. They're just doing it with some vigor and with some zest. But what happens is a person eventually says something that irritates their viewers or their base or the people that they talk to. And therefore, instead of doubling down and saying, no, this is how I really feel, I mean, I guess I should give you an example. Let's say a person is talking about the injustices of the government and the corruption, and they find an audience with some very right leaning people, right? And they're like, this is good, now I can communicate with different people and bridge the gap, which is what it's all about. And kind of my point here, it's about bridging the gap between different viewpoints. But instead, they go off the deep end and start believing what not only the viewers are telling them, but they want to cater to those viewers. So they start falling into these kind of conspiracy holes, and all of a sudden they're just, I'm red pilled. I've become aware of all the injustices. I see that I've been lied to my whole life, and a lot of us are just like, dude, it's just phase one. You know, not to. There are so many people out there who think that they are awakened to some truth, and you find that they're just, you know, just talking shit. Basically, they're just repeating things that they've heard. And I know this because of a person who I'm a person who's done a lot of research and as much as possible, and meditation and insight and experimentation, trying to figure out what is this all about. And I've come to the conclusion that in the 21st century, we're living these lives where we're unable to cope with the tools that we have. Now, there's two options to this. Either one, people withdraw from society and go off, do their own thing, or you dumb yourself down to fit in. And that sounds arrogant, like, well, other people aren't just dumb. But the truth is, in my experience, a lot of the people I interact with are fairly dumb. But it doesn't mean that they're dumb in every way. Some of these people are far more intelligent than I am with certain aspects of life, like emotional intelligence, spatial, mathematical, scientific, that I think there's like 9 or 11 different types of, you know, intelligence. But really, these are just words. If you really want to get down to the rudimentary, let's take the most intelligent. Let's take an Einstein, right? Take Albert Einstein, since people seem to revere him. None of us really know how smart he actually was. This, a century ago, right? But the guy was a genius, at least for his time and for today, probably. So let's take Einstein and compare him to a tribal elder bushman from Australia, right? Now, a person would look at these two standing next to each other and say, who's the intelligent one? Oh, obviously Einstein. Of course, a lot of folks would know that's an instant trap. What kind of intelligence? What world are you living in? If you sent Einstein to his world and he had to live in the outback, he'd be dead in a week. That's just the fact. That's the way it works. People are intelligent and they have knowledge based on the environment that they need to respond to. So, and I have a point here. The environment that we're living in today, with all of the social media, with all the bullshit propaganda and politics, which it's politics as usual. Let's make that clear. It's nothing different. It's just that we can see it clearer. It's like it's the difference between like seeing HD, like an HD video, when you're like, oh God, let's just get it back to kind of standard definition. You can see like every hair, every pore, every problem. You're like, okay, well, let's just, you know, we're better off with just kind of a fake version of things sometimes. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't seek the truth, the raw version of what things are, but does it really make us happier? And I mean, this is important. Are we happier being truth seekers? I haven't found it to be the case, but it's who I am, and I can't stop doing so. I'm constantly seeking anything that's informative. If somebody wants to give me a bit of information, teach me something, I'm like open ears, like I want to hear it. And I've seen what's happening today. I've got to the point where I don't want to hear it anymore, where I just don't care. And I'm trying to figure out whether that's a scary place to be or where I want to be, if that makes sense. All my life, I've just wanted to know the truth, whatever it might be. I don't mean that every day I'm out seeking some ultimate truth. What I mean is, any topic, any subject, I want to know what's the truth of this subject as far as we know it. And another podcast I was listening to earlier was dealing with this. They were talking about philosophy in general and how the philosopher deals in worlds between, bridges the gaps. And the idea is to bridge those gaps. I want to be able to talk to a hardcore Trump supporter, dude with the big old pickup and flags hanging off the back of his pickup. I mean, I know people like that. It's not like I have anything against people. It's like, but that's the extreme end of like, I vote for this guy because he's going to solve all these problems, going to get rid of all the immigrants, whatever a person may think is going to solve their issues in life. And then on the other side, we have the extreme liberal softy who just, can't deal with hate. Oh, this is too dangerous. This is too scary. The kind of people you just want to whip into shape and be like, you need to go on a long hike or bike ride or mountain climbing or something. You need to get out of your comfort zone and stop thinking that the real world is going to cater to your whims, but also creating this illusion that everybody is oppressing everyone else. When the real fact is, it's not your right wing neighbor with the Trump flag that's oppressing your kids. And the guy with the Trump flag should know it's not your left wing liberal neighbor that's destroying your kid's future with his liberal politics in schools or whatever it might be. It's the motherfuckers who are sitting in Congress. It's the fuckers who are sitting in office in the executive branch right now, as well as the legislative and judicial, that are getting your tax dollars to make horrible decisions to keep us in perpetual warfare in order to make profit for a few people. Going back to the war in the Gulf, I remember I have a pair of dog tags that says, you know, Desert Storm. I think it was like says 11591 end of war. It was somebody we knew who had a family member who had died in the Gulf War. And that was back in 91. And then in 2001, when the towers got hit and they started talking about going into Iraq, look, I'm a rational thinker. I didn't just think, well, oh, it must have been Saddam who crashed those planes into our towers. I said, what the fuck are they doing going into Iraq? This must have been predestined and pre planned. Not necessarily the attacks, but taking advantage of the situation. I know all the conspiracies. I won't go into that one, but they wanted to. It's now known and has been shown through disclosed documents from the war room where Bush himself had said, he said, find a way that I can pin this on Saddam, figure out a way that I can go into Iraq from this. That was the whole intention because it was something that went back decades. Saddam was our buddy. Saddam worked for us. We had him, doing our bidding. Anytime a country wants to nationalize their product, their oil, or anything, maybe the leader is greedy, whatever it might be. The whole thing is the US comes in as a hero, claiming we're going to help the people. But what do? We do things like put embargoes on fucking Cuba. Cuba, okay? Now, I think most Americans think Cuba is an amazing place. They should be left alone. Most Americans don't realize that we still have embargoes on Cuba and that this is costing our nation and theirs immensely. And it's for no reason whatsoever. Here's the weird thing, it's a power play. You know, we just don't want to see any other country come up. We want countries dependent on us. And, I'm sorry. I apologize on behalf of the United States of America to anybody out there. And I know most of my viewers are in the US, but I've looked at the demographics and I know that a lot of you are from, well, a lot from the UK or from Norway, wherever it might be. But a couple people from Turkey, places like Azerbaijan, like, I don't know who's watching from where. I can't imagine what the circumstances are like where you're at. I mean, I'm not living your life, and I try to remember that. Things are complicated everywhere. Anyhow, I should say hi to everybody who's here. Oh, I guess 12 of you, it looks like. Or hello, Incognito. Says, hope your night's going good. It is, thank you. King Dodo, Altrusian Grace Media. I have listened to most of their stuff, most of his stuff, yes. Einstein failed school twice. That doesn't surprise me, Andre. Actually, most of the good, you know, most smart people can't handle school. It's just how it is. Say hello to everybody. I can't read them all. I'm getting old. Hello, Earl the Young, and Andre. Knowledge is powerful. Fale, it's good to see you. And yes, Andre, you're correct. People need to teach their kids, absolutely. I got $20 for taxes. Where did the rest of my money go? Bush had the World Trade Center blown up. That. So let's get let's get to that. Let's. I'm not going to. I will not entertain the idea that happened at the trade centers was planned outright. That doesn't mean I don't think it's possible, and it just means I have no evidence whatsoever to prove it. However, after 9/11, it was easy for me to see the videos of the towers pancaking and the windows breaking out and people claiming bombs were set, and then most of us knew that there was more to the story. People who were smart about it knew there was more to the story, but those who were truly smart were able to, over the years, after the next 5 years passed and more data came out, and more explanations to why these things happen. For example, they said that it was bombs because the windows were blowing out as it collapsed. Well, that's just air pressure blowing the windows out. But that my thought was more like, really, I know they did remodeling right before that. I know that there was an insurance policy changed, all this weird shit that happened. But the biggest thing is, why would you go to the trouble to plant bombs in every floor and then assume that they're going to go off without a hitch? I mean, it'd be just as easy to let the whole thing fall. I mean, if you don't give a fuck, you don't give a fuck, right? So, what I realized during that time, because I was very into conspiracies, was that the reason why we want to believe a good conspiracy is because we have a hard time believing things just happen without a purpose for no reason. And I get that. I do. I mean, to assume that some bad person just did some random thing. But let me get back to the fact that when I said that, we assume people have evil intent, nefarious intent, like other countries, what fascinates me with this is that as Americans, we've been fed so much bullshit about why America's under threat by whether it's the axis of evil, you know, or Russia in the past, um, generally, or China now. None of these countries really pose any serious threat to the United States. Now, that doesn't mean that if we were in a war, that we wouldn't suffer. It means that you've got to look at it rationally. You've got to understand human nature. Most people want to be left alone to do what the fuck they want to do. If you really think that a majority of Chinese want to go invade America or something, you're totally, off your rocker. Just like most Americans don't want to go invade China. I mean, we know, what'll happen. We know people can be fooled into going to war for their leaders, but we also know that, realistically, America's fine. We There's more guns than people in this country. So it's not the kind of place you could take by force. If anything happens, it's going to be electronic. It's going to be an EMP, a detonation in the atmosphere, takes out the grid, or a hack, destroying our, infrastructure, whatever it might be. It doesn't matter. I'm not too worried about it because I know that any country that does this, it's the same as pushing the nuke button. You're basically dooming everyone to chaos. And even though we'd like to think that out of 8 billion people, there's like these millions of just, crazy politicians that would destroy their country on a heartbeat. If that were true, we'd all be dead already. People aren't as crazy as we are led to believe. That cooler heads prevail. It's like the guy that stopped the nuke a couple different times, but one guy in Russia that just knew it probably wasn't an attack. Like the whole world could have gone to fucking shit that day, but it didn't because humans, you know, we're not so bad. We actually need to give ourselves a little more credit. And it's unfortunate that it's the average, blue collar human that makes the best decisions, the ones that save the day. It's not the politician, it's not the tech technocrat or tech bro that's going to save the day. I don't know why we romanticize billionaires right now. I feel like it was something that my generation tried. Maybe we just didn't teach the kids well enough. Like, my whole generation was like, oh, the kids. I remember saying this like 20 years ago, like the kids of tomorrow are going to be smart enough to see through this bullshit capitalist crap. You know, it doesn't mean that you have to abandon like making money. It just means the idea that being rich is going to make you happy or that celebrities are something to be celebrated just because they have money. But I never knew how far it would really go to where we would literally let the richest man in the world, like, you know, run around with our economic, data. It's just fucking mind blowing to me. I don't get angry about it. I'm just stupefied. I'm stupefied that humans in this country, adults, cannot see the forest for the trees. The fact that people don't get rich by being nice guys, you know? Well, I mean, you can be a millionaire and be a great human being. But if you're a multi-billionaire or 100 multi-billionaire, you're obviously doing something that's, abusing your privilege as a human. That's what I feel. I don't feel be like any squirrel with be like having a squirrel with like an entire city full of nuts and just keeping all the other squirrels out. Squirrely situation. But what do you do, right? People are people. I don't care. I mean, it doesn't change the resources that I can obtain for myself. I can grow my own food. I got home from work about a half an hour ago. I'm pretty tired actually. I don't know why I'm doing a live cast, but yeah, I work hard for my money. I live and try to navigate this life as best I can. And there's people with silver spoons who just never had a clue of what it's like to actually work or do anything real. That's what I mean by the makers and the takers. There's people who make money and do work. And then there's people who make money off of other people's work. For example, I love my boss and all, but all bosses are an example. He charges a certain amount for me, then he charges extra on top of that for himself. He makes money every time I work. I've been at work all day. Even if he's not working, he's making money off of me. If you rent from a homeowner, you're probably paying more in rent than they pay for mortgage. So they're able to pay their mortgage plus make a profit off of you. I don't know if that's okay or not, but I know that it feels fucked up. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel like something that's conducive to a good community and running a good society. But it's what we do because we don't see each other as people. Quite often, it's easy for people to demonize one another. And if you can't do it based on, race, religion, or politics, you can do it on, viewpoints. There's a million things that you could do. I should say if you can't do it on uh, race, gender, or economics, you can always just be biased because another person is different in any way, shape, or form. You know, the justifications people have for treating others like crap. It blows my mind. It really does. I mean, we have a literal, ethnic cleansing going on right now as we speak. And a lot of Americans will instantly get defensive and say, no, it's not that. It's, Hamas did this, they did that. Yeah, Hamas is horrible and they did some fucked up shit. But Israel has had plans to ethnically cleanse Palestine for, you know, or the Palestinians. There is no Palestine, supposedly. But the more I learn about the history, I mean, because I've always been fascinated with the history of the Middle East, down to religious texts, Nag Hammadi library, and, Judaism, Christianity. I don't know it all. Nobody does. But I learned as much as I needed to know to realize that the Jews have no claim to that land at all. But especially when I see people forcing others out at gunpoint, killing people, slaughtering people, killing children, and being okay with that. Not just killing kids and women, but saying, mocking them by making videos about it, posting it on TikTok or YouTube. The government themselves, they have a slogan they call mowing the lawn. This is what they do in Gaza every few years to, thin the herd to keep the population down. That's literally their term, is mowing the lawn. I mean, and so I've thought a lot about this lately because of the way that we as humans treat each other and how easy it is to dehumanize the other. And to me, I see all humans as equal, like some even more so than others. And it's usually the ones that are the most innocent, those tribal elders in Australia, right? In the outback, the ones who have been passed down tradition for thousands of years, something that our culture with our stupid memes and skibbity jokes don't last a fucking week. And we want to like think that we are modern and technologically advanced. It blows my mind. It's weird, and it's a weird time to be alive, and I don't feel like I really belong in this timeline, but here I am. Here we are, all of us. It's weird shit. I'm gonna say hello to my peeps. Whoever joined, Ryan Lawrence, good to see you. AI says Felly. Oh God, I should get into AI. That's a whole other topic. We got David or Logan Freeman, the American Church and the devil. If it ain't church and Christianity, yep, I know exactly what you're talking about. So it's good to see you. Oh, hey, Drummond for life. It's good to see you too, my friend. Carpo, you ever stumbled on Truth Stream Media's channel? They just put a vid out, the dehumanization of man. Yes. I may be mistaken here, but follow me. If I'm not mistaken, Truth Stream Media is run by a husband and wife, I think, and it's at least a man and a woman. I don't know if they're married. Um, and the very early days, you know, I don't know, whatever, a decade ago, maybe less, a lot of these truth channels really started sharing, the corruption, right? The corruption from our government, the corruption from other governments. Um, I'm going to try to put this simply without being a dick because I can't help it. I feel like all these truthing channels and anybody who puts truth as a name in their channel just rubs me the wrong way these days. And it doesn't mean that I don't think people should listen to it. I think that there is value. I just feel like the term truth has been so abused now that it means nothing, um, to me. And I have my own version of what I think is the truth, but I don't. There's only so many stories you can talk about when it comes to like how fucked up things are out there, right? I feel this way about the anti-Trump channels or the anti-conservative channels, the same way I feel about the anti-liberal channels on YouTube, right? These people every single day have to make a new video finding something to fucking bitch about, something that's wrong with the world. And I'm going on a tangent now. This isn't necessarily related to Truth Stream because I don't know what they're putting out these days. I just know in the past it was a lot of fear mongering. And there's part of me that says it's stuff people need to hear. Then there's part of me that says, but is this really all true? Is this all vetted? And it kind of brings me into the Alex Jones syndrome. I just feel like I'm being hurted, not just mentally, but emotionally, that I'm being herded into thinking a certain way. And so what I started doing was I generally don't keep up to date with current events, but I follow things that interest me. But if something gets me emotionally upset or bothered, which is rare, then I question it and I say, is this worth my time? Does it even matter? The only thing that I've found really getting me actually angry in the last couple of years is Israel and the way that they're treating international law and the way America, my country, is feeding the bullshit. Mostly, I'm angry at my own country for continually feeding weapons to a country that is slaughtering civilians. Now, I've thought a lot about this. Like, am I just getting emotionally invested? Maybe there's misinformation. Maybe it's not as bad as they say. I kept telling myself that for the first year and now into the second year. And I've seen the aerial photos of Gaza. It's not just that they've flattened 75% of Gaza completely, it's that they are now in the West Bank with tanks taking over people's homes. People, a lot of Americans don't realize that an American citizen can say, I'm a Jew now. This is, just kind of a general idea of it. They can become a Jew, they can decide to move to Israel, then they can go out to the West Bank and at gunpoint force a Palestinian family out of their home that's lived there for hundreds of years, you know, at least, their family, and just say, no, you're going away now and taking your house. There are cases of this and there's videos of it. So it's not like it's just speculation. But that to me just says, well, you're entitled to land because of your religious beliefs to somebody else's home because you have superior firepower. I'm disgusted by it. And I won't stand by and just pretend like, people talk about being on the right side of history. It doesn't matter if you're on the right or wrong. When people are dying, it is what it is. So, you know, living in the modern day and not being able to even talk about genocide or war as what it is, but being like protecting freedom, these kinds of things, it's like, I don't know. It's stupefying. It blows my mind that people can justify killing other humans. Just put it really bluntly, right? Like I mentioned before, my dad was in Vietnam. He slaughtered an entire village, him and his crew. Women and children only. All the men were gone. He told my mom the story. She repeated it to me years later, but it broke him. But he was in the fog of war. My dad was a poet. He was a very intelligent guy, calm guy, peaceful dude. Something happened. They got called to go on like a run and go out searching. Something happened. They came across a village. They were ordered to kill the civilians, and they did. This isn't an isolated incident. My dad killed a bunch of civilians, okay? I'm sure some of your dads did. Anybody who's been in war has probably slaughtered civilians because that's what happens in war. And I'm a civilian, okay? I know I'm protected. I live in America. Shit, I'm armed. I, we as Americans, we're all defended, right? We don't worry as much as you would in a place where your government can literally drive down the street with a 50 caliber fucking machine gun and just walk into your house and say, "What do you believe? Pray to my God or you're gonna die right now." That kind of attitude, that in the 21st century we're still living with that shit. That we still tolerate it. We still put up with that crap. It's barbaric. And then to think that I live in a country where my government allows things that are even more barbaric, torture, waterboarding, you know, not just cutting off Cuba, but setting up a fucking torture center in Cuba and calling it Guantanamo Bay. Like, there's so much that happens that I'm so embarrassed by, but I can't be because I have no control over it. I'm no more, in control of what my government does than I am about what my ancestors did. I don't have any white guilt. I'm just a dude. I'm an American, a blue fucking regular guy, that tries to work a job, take care of my family, and do the normal shit that we do. And there's people whose entire lives are to, dedicated to waking up at 6 a.m. and figuring out a way to kill other people. It's just mind blowing. Really is. I think I need a bong hit. I'm going to do that. And y'all can come up with some questions if you got any. I probably won't be on here forever, but I'll stay for a little while longer. Today I have some platinum gelati. I don't know what it is. I would guess it's platinum OG and gelati, or platinum cookies and gelati, something like that. Which sounds Greek to anybody who doesn't smoke weed. But, there's like 20, 30 different main strains that are all kind of combined. Crossbreeding. Just like humans. It can produce some good shit and some bad shit. But I gotta step off camera. Then I keep it legal for kids. I'm over here making coffee in my percolator. So, I appreciate that you're all here, and I was looking there and seeing that there's like 17 people, it says. And I thought, that's like a 4x4 square in front of me of people with one guy in the back falling asleep. And that's actually a lot of people to me, to actually talk to. I think the most I've ever had on a live stream was like 60 people or something, but that's, I don't usually plan them. So, but when I do it, when I make a live stream, it's nice to be able to just talk about what I want and not feel like I'm cornered and not feel like I'm obligated to talk in one viewpoint or another, that I can say what I feel and that y'all will understand. You may be left or right or up or down or Christian or atheist. I don't give a fuck what you believe. I don't care, I mean, I care, but I don't care in the sense that I'm going to put you down or say you're wrong. I'll tell you, there's nothing that ruffles my feathers more than when somebody tells me that I've got it wrong. Because I mean when it's something that nobody really knows. Like, hey, guess what? I found Mohammed and now I'm happy. Or I found, Bob Dylan or the Spaghetti Monster. Or hey man, you should take the red pill. If you just go to the right side, you'll see. It's like, no man, I've analyzed this shit for years. I'm well aware of what's right and what's wrong and what works for me. And nobody else's bullshit, affects me the way it probably once would have. Somebody asked me about what do you think about the Pledge of Allegiance and having God in it? And it was in a Q&A I did the other day. And it's funny because I say, a lot of folks don't realize this, but the Pledge of Allegiance didn't have one nation under God in it. It used to say one nation indivisible, not one nation under God indivisible. They added under God in 1954 during fears of communism. And 3 years later, they put in God we trust on money. Yes, in God we trust was not on money until 1957. Look it up. So, these are interesting aspects of how basically propaganda, anti-communism propaganda, the idea that if we could just prop up God, that we could defeat communism. But if you understand history, you know that communism was never the real threat. Just like terrorism was never the threat. George Bush and his axis of evil and sending our troops off to die for a war that, only benefited a few. And these are controversial topics, but no more than anything else. Somebody asked me the other day in the Q&A about political Islam, and it was one of my subscribers in the UK. And I actually had to look into it because I was aware of it, but I want to be informed on it, right? It is a huge problem in some places where I guess the question is, if Islamic culture, extremist Islam, let's say, moves into an area and they dominate the politics of the area and they start to pass laws which benefit Muslims or, are, let's say, we would think of as extreme as Americans, is that okay? And it's one of those questions I just found fascinating. Like, it wasn't worded like that, but when I started to think about it, I'm like, God, I don't know. UK, that's totally different. But in America, to think of some little small town, people came in and started trying to fuck with our politics, if we'd put up with that. And it reminded me of Eastern Oregon. And I was born and raised in Oregon, so we always heard the story about the Rajneeshis. And you may have heard the story, but the Rajneeshis were this cult, basically, of these. Were they Indian? And I mean, like, from India. They could have been from India or the Middle East somewhere. I'm not sure exactly. I don't remember. But they came in and they moved into this small town. I think it was out by Baker, Oregon, somewhere. But they tried to dominate the politics in the area. They had a cult in this compound, and they wanted to get their person elected as the mayor, I think, something like that. So what they did was these Rajneeshis came in and they poisoned a salad bar with, like, I think E. coli or something. They poisoned a salad bar in the town, and I don't remember if it was like where there was a meeting of the other officials or the other team, or if it was just where he was eating. But the point is, the other side got sick and had to miss the election day, kind of thing, and they were hoping to throw the election by, like, literally using, you know poisoning, American officials to try to take over the elections there. So, it's not like weird shit like that hasn't happened before. But they got caught, they went to prison, but these people still exist out there. The group, but also just people like that. People who are willing to kill, maim, and destroy to get power and to make their rules, set in stone. So to get back to the question, I think basically the question was, if somebody wanted to implement Sharia law in your town, would you put up with it? My answer is a simple fuck no. I wouldn't. It's not our culture. We don't live like that here. In America, yeah, we got problems, but we're pretty proud of the people that we are. That you can walk around freely. That women can show their tits if they want to, and don't have to put a scarf over their face. And then I start to wonder, you know, the way we judge other cultures for wearing, a hijab, right? Headscarf. It's a very complicated issue. But what people wear is completely different from passing laws and, changing leadership. So, yeah, I wouldn't put up with that shit in my neighborhood. I'm going to read through the comments real quick. Everything is the devil if it ain't Christianity. Yes, I fucking relate to that, my friend. Um, I mean, people who say that, I've, I guess I could go on and on about that one. I don't even have to debate or argue that Christianity has been, it's created its own problems over the years, but most religions have. Unicorn Ninja, that's a new name. Good to see you. Says we're pretty fortunate here in the U.S. Some parts of the world are they're eating each other, more or less. Yes, sir. Hello, Kapaxi. It's good to see you too. And Ryan. Yep. David says lived on the streets because of circumstances for the last 7 years, off and on in the streets. You never go hungry ever in the U.S. and get resources. That's a really good point, David. And one that I appreciate you making. Um, I really do. When somebody like me says that, even though, I've struggled in my own time, I've applied for food stamps, I used a calculator in the store. Like, I know what it's like to be broke and grow up broke and have kids and be broke. I do okay now with my wife and I both working, and I have a decent job as a carpenter, but I really am just better at managing money. And I'll say, and weed's cheaper. That helps. but but really, um, being smarter with money, trying to save a little bit of money, it goes a long way because I know that if my wife and I both lost our jobs, then we'd be on the streets in no time. So it's living on the streets, even if you're completely fucked, there's always food. And I've heard people say, "Oh, there's nothing to eat." It's like, no, bullshit. I worked at a soup kitchen when I was on probation. I opted to do the community service at the soup kitchen. I was down there all the time. I talked to the homeless guys in the kitchen who would come in to get their food, and they'd talk about the guys outside. They're like, "Yeah, they're too proud. They won't come in here and eat. They have no, they won't take free food. But they'll sit on the corner and beg me when I'm driving home from work. You know, working 9 hours, then driving a fucking hour home on the freeway, and then going up to the corner with the guy with the sign just chilling there, not even looking at you, not even playing the guitar or juggling or nothing, just sitting in a wheelchair nodding off because he's so fucking high on fucking fentanyl. And it's gross. Don't give those people money. Don't give junkies money, please. I that sounds harsh, but it's not helping. We're not improving the situation, but doesn't improve by not either. So, you know, I there is a tough love strategy that we have to have with certain people, and in our society, I have extremely mixed feelings about prisons, for example. Like, what do you do about people who commit crimes against one another? Uh, you hear people talk about this kind of utopia we could have where everybody cares about one another. I'm like, okay, that's all great and dandy. What about the one motherfucker who doesn't? What about that one asshole who runs around the edge of town every night screaming and hitting pots and pans and being noisy and harassing people and raping chicks out in the woods? What do you do about that guy? There's always going to be that guy, right? So people, anytime people give you a utopian vision of society, say, okay, what do you do about that guy? And they'll think about it and they'll say, usually, well, that's what we have jail for. We lock them up. I'm like, okay, who maintains them? And what conditions they kept under? I mean, what happens when there's thousands of those guys? Do you give them good prison conditions? Okay. What happens when other people realize that their lives aren't going so well and they'd be better off in one of these nice prisons? It's a weird thing because the more you think about it, the more you realize there's no easy answer. If you make prison comfortable, people won't mind going. If you make it horrible, then it's like human rights issue, especially when people don't deserve prison. Um, and how do you know that the people who are making the judgments are doing it correctly? Uh, what if somebody gets sued by a company and then the company has enough money to hire that judge to just kind of work in their favor? It's not like that doesn't happen every fucking day in this country. I mean, everything is corrupt. Everything is corrupted by money. Maybe the solution is a basic income. I don't know. I've thought about that. I I don't know if what we're doing works, and I definitely don't think that people are as greedy and selfish as folks make it out to be. I just think that people feel left out. I feel like most people want to be an honest, working, hardworking people. There's going to be a few who are going to take advantage. We call those people out. That's fine. But for the rest of us, getting paid decent, getting a basic minimum wage, I can't believe people, not just the people over in fucking Tennessee and shit. I don't know Tennessee for sure, but out in the South down there, some of these places still get what, 750 minimum wage? You all tell me, is federal minimum wage what, 750? That's fucking crazy to me. We get 1550 up here in Washington. Yeah, food costs more, cigarettes cost more, everything does, but dude, that's like over double what they're making down there. But that's not even all. Waitresses, my wife is a server. She gets paid hourly plus her tips, and she decides what she wants to do with that money, tax wise. Some of these restaurants down there, most of them, a lot of them will pay their waitresses $2 an hour. I've heard $2 an hour. Some places don't even pay you. You only get tips, so you better work hard, better get good tips. Some places pool their tips. But the fact is, the tips get taxed too. Now, Trump promised he was going to eliminate this. So did Biden, I think. I think everybody says that because they want to sound good. Let's see if that ever happens. But I honestly don't believe it because they want to rape as much money from us as they can. My wife works her ass off. She's got, you know, she's had the blisters to prove it. She works her ass off and she works for the money she gets. When you take on a job as a server, waitress, waiter, you don't expect to get pay raises. You might be manager, assistant manager or something, but you don't get pay raises. You just become better at your job and maybe work at a better restaurant so you can get better tips. But ultimately, your tips depend on your attitude. And that's where the money is. So they want to do a good job because of the tips. You see what I'm saying? You take away the tips, people stop giving a shit. Just like you take away the good wage for a person and they stop giving a shit. If all your company is going to pay somebody as a minimum wage forever, don't expect them to stick around and be surprised why people disappear. You know, I know I get paid well for what I do, which is why I stay with the company. We've actually been out of work, so I've been trying to remodel my own house. I work today and a few days this week for this client that has money, so he can spend money and he wants to remodel his house. It's like the very end of a long year and a half long project, but just final details, installing like a sink, special fancy sink, and toilet, and brass hardware. So it's all like super fine work, but I love that shit. But there's also some toilets to install and stuff. But the thing is, if you get paid well, you will stick with your company even when it goes out of business, even when it, not out of business, but when business gets bad. And they treat me well, so I treat them well. That's all we can expect from each other and society in general. just treat each other with some fucking respect, you know, and you'll get the same in return. And pay your employees well, god damn it. If you're an employer, well, if you're an employer, you're not watching this. You're probably watching some economic video. Anyway, I better get going. I'm getting kind of hungry. It's been a long day. Um, just wanted to say hello, everybody. Hello, Leon Loic from France. Nice. That's a long ways away. And then we've got Marcus from Sweden. Good to see you too. I just wanted to say, I guess it's been about 55 minutes. I can stick around for another minute, but um, I don't want to do a live cast that's too long on this Wednesday night because yeah, like I said, I went to work this morning. I had a protein smoothie at like noon, and then ate a little bit of chicken, Costco chicken, when I got home. My wife just got home at the same time at like 7. Then I started this live cast, and I was like, I better get back in there and eat, dude. I'm hungry. But I felt I wanted to talk about some shit, so I got both. And I have a few videos I want to upload and a couple podcasts, but I'll get around to it when I get around to it. And yeah, peace out. I'll see y'all next time. Be well. Much love. Muchy love. How's this thing? Hey, is this thing on, man? Yeah.